You know that one meme that goes like, normalize this, normalize that. How about you feel shame for once? It actually kind of does make sense. But for me, and for many others, the feeling of not wanting to feel shame leads to so much more dangerous and reactive emotions. It either leads to a depressing, self-loathing, sad boy hour, or it just straight up leads to anger for me. Think about the last time you felt shame. For me, it was when I've gotten rejected from something, or if I did something that I knew was inherently wrong for me, but I could not help it, or if I didn't live up to some of my own standards and principles, which obviously sometimes happens. We definitely don't like feeling that type of shame. It inevitably leads to some kind of cover-up from it. For example, I hate being corrected for something that I thought was right. I feel a tremendous amount of pride when it comes to those kind of things. I didn't do that wrong, you did. How could I possibly be wrong? This can't be a good way to function though, and this is where the idea of pride comes in my opinion. The great Uncle Iroh once said, "Pride is not the opposite of shame, but rather its source. Only true humility can save us from shame." What this really effectively means is that we're faced with two options. Either we completely get rid of pride and shame, or if we are to be prideful, then we have to accept the fact that we will feel shame eventually. We must be okay with facing shame head on. For example, if we're going to celebrate our wins, we will take pride on it, and eventually we will lose it, and the shame follows us again. I remember feeling extremely joyful about getting a job. My first job, and then I hated it. I remember feeling the shame of wanting to leave it followed me around, and on and on and on the cycle goes. Wins and losses just keep happening over and over and over and over again. But when it does, if we're gonna take pride, then make sure you feel that shame head on. And I think this is a fine way to live for most people, and it's much more healthier. It is most certainly better than the anger and desperation of wanting to hide those feelings. However, there is another option, the first option, and I think this truly is a superior one, and that is to eliminate both pride and shame. Is that possible entirely? I'm not sure. I've never fully done it ever. But it definitely feels possible, at least in pockets of moment in my own life. The only right first step though is to understand the relationship between those two things. They are always tied to each other, kind of like the way pleasure and pain are, kind of like the way the act of pulling and the act of pushing is. And while Uncle Iroh's quote on humility is true, obviously it's missing the bridge of how to get to that understanding. We can't technically force humility, can we? Humility comes from the constant re-engagement we have. It comes from the defeats and victories that lives hand us over and over and over and again. The highs of each moment are only ever tethered by its lows. Victory always follows losses. Humility, love, and acceptance is a byproduct of living and of true understanding. It cannot be forced, I think. At least it can't be forced on me. And by the way, I do obviously want to preface this by saying I have never actually beaten pride. There are some things I feel very strongly for, like when my favorite team wins, for example, or when Nepal is represented in some manner, or when I overcome a shortcoming in my own character or skill set. Over time though, however, I think I've learned to become a lot more careful about this feeling. I pick those moments of pride carefully. I'm also aware that it will follow some amount of pain. The shame will begin. When we're able to let those two things go under most circumstances, I think it opens our heart to something truly beautiful, something truly profound, and its implications become a true love for life. Don't celebrate successes. I get how extreme that may sound. Look, when we celebrate success, we're kind of admitting, in some sense, that the journey was never worth it. We were only ever doing it for results. What we call success is a result of many tiny failures. Failures that we either enjoyed to some extent, or at least needed in some sense. To me, I think those are things that are worth it as well. They're not just stepping stones, they are where life is. So if we let go of this binary of pride and shame, then the journey is all there is. Celebration truly becomes only for other people, not for yourself. As a result, I think rejections and acceptance don't have a significant impact on you, or your mental health, or your stability, or your sense of well-being. But it's only true if we keep that framework I'm talking about earlier though. Otherwise, these rejections feel like a lot of pain. They feel like a lot of pain to me personally, still. It doesn't mean that we literally don't celebrate anything. It just means that we understand that celebration could actually happen at each moment, and whatever milestone that we reach is a way of indicating for other people to also enjoy it with us. We don't need to do it specifically for ourselves necessarily. That being said though, I don't admire losers. I don't think anyone does, but I also don't necessarily admire winners. I do not care that Messi, who's my favorite soccer player of all time, has a World Cup and multiple Ballon d'Ors, or that Manny Pacquiao, who's one of the best boxers of all time, is an 8th division champ. I do, however, care about their specific journey to get there. I care about the obstacles they had to overcome. Messi had to overcome a genetic deficiency, a deficiency that left him shorter than almost everyone. He has to take growth hormones for it, in fact. He had to overcome a lot of national pressure from his home country, Argentina. He had to overcome a string of national team losses over and over and over again, right? Multiple World Cup losses, multiple Copa losses. Eventually, he finally got that one World Cup that made everything feel so right with the universe. Manny Pacquiao had to overcome extreme poverty, was always undersized in every single division. Arguably, a lot of the matches were also rigged against him, but yet he overcame all those things. I would argue that journey of seeing people's character and what they are is what we actually admire about these people, not the actual victories, right? For example, I don't know the journey of Bill Russell's 11 NBA championships, and so it doesn't really mean that much for me, even though that number is amazing. To me, LeBron's one win at Cleveland meant way more than the other three championships he has. It's because we get to appreciate their journey, a journey which involves some amount of pride and some amount of shame, and we can see the story pan out. And so when we are able to see it, we could kind of let go of it and better appreciate what the moment is giving us. And here's how dangerous pride could actually be. You know those people that go, back in my days, I did all this. Or like, when I was in high school, I got this many girls. Or when I was in high school, I was a star player or something. It's the same people that maxed out in their high school days or their college days. Same people that try to live out their college glory days by drinking all the time still. It's the same mindset that leads old people that are pushing 50 to chase after young girls like Leonardo DiCaprio. It's the same people that become jealous parents that hold their kids back. That same people that hold on to broken traditional values even though it has not worked in their specific situation, and definitely not for everyone. In a more innocuous way, it's the same principle that leads the old folks who talk about how the 90s music was better or the 90s basketball was better, but now it's all trash, it's all corrupted and weak. While certainly in varying degrees, I think all these traits have an element of pride to them. I'm sure it translates over to everyone though. There's like a stern pride people have in their bygone youth, a need to hide the shame that they're no longer the same exact person they were back then. They don't have the same amount of energy, the vigor, and are probably not nearly the same as they used to be. They're probably not valued in the same way anymore. And that lack of value leads them to feel a lot of shame and guilt. And the larger their shame, the bigger the pride about their youth, the more exaggerated the stories become. And you know some of these uncles are definitely lying, like 100% lying. And while the only specific example I could think of was like Leonardo DiCaprio, you can see it all the time, right? You can see it in the older sibling getting jealous of the younger sibling. You can see it in the parents that can't take the feedback of their kids. You see it in the midlife crisis dad that divorces his wife and buys a motorcycle to live out his wild glory days. I do think all of this comes down to a need to bury your shame, feel some sort of control through pride. It's a way of getting the illusion of control back into your side. Pride, anger, whatever it is that you control. In all these cases, had they been open to understanding, a true sense of humility would wash over them, in my opinion. There's a beauty to people that have ease of well-being, gentleness, and humility. It's like, yes, they don't maintain the same level of skill as they did in their youth, but they're still clearly useful in some ways, in a different way, right? And it's okay to let that go. They might not be winning all their games or keeping up with the youngins, but they're clearly masters of some sorts of craft, a skill that cannot be really replaced by others. They might not look pretty with flawless skin all the time and have the most powerful, biggest muscles, but they're clearly wealthy of love and glowing beautifully. There are people like this. When we let go of our pride and shame, our ability to be compassionate also maximizes. In fact, it's so strange. In the moments when I have the greatest awareness, I could place myself in the mind of someone who's acting out of shame and pride. I could achieve the same exact sets of thought and mindset, yet still understand that it doesn't exist. It makes it easy to not get consumed because there's actually nothing to be consumed by or for anything to consume. So if that's possible and letting go of those things leads to a more beautiful life, what exactly is the point of pride and shame? It's at best neutral and at worst very negative, right? Some people might argue that shame is necessary, that we should feel shame for things that are bad. People should feel bad about lying and cheating and doing immoral activities. Animals feel shame. Think about the videos of the dogs that make a mistake, like breaking a vase, and they get yelled at and they look extremely guilty. They clearly have a lot of shame in their body language and eyes. Animals also feel a great sense of pride. It is clearly innate to us. Our guilt and regrets make up a lot of our societal moral compass. And this is fine, remember, as long as we feel both the emotions. But I do think it's totally possible to make mistakes, regret it, and want to redeem it without the feeling of shame. Shame to me is more than just not wanting something to happen in the future. It has this another element of totally identifying with the act. I didn't just do this bad thing, I am this bad thing. That's kind of what shame says in my opinion. I didn't just achieve the success, I am the success. That's kind of what pride does. And because that pain of shame is so rough, people will deny it and definitely compensate with other emotions, like blaming others when we make mistakes. Yet no one is purely one thing. Even the worst person person can be redeemed in the next moment, and the best person can fall. So is it even necessary to have shame? Is it even accurate to have pride if you could fall the next moment? Plus, if we are saying that shame holds our moral compass together and our moral fabric together as a society, then I think we're missing the plot. Shouldn't our goal lead to people improving, rehabbing, rather than constantly guilting them and using fear as a tactic to suppress bad acts? Isn't rehabilitation always better than punishment and imprisonment? To me, that is exactly what shame is: imprisonment. Yet humility would release even the worst of us. In the end though, these are all just words. These are both words. You might have found my answers to be wholly unsatisfactory. My point here was not semantics at all. My point is that I think most of us want to live in a way that's free, satisfied, happy, and wise in some sense, whatever those words mean to you. For some reason, we delude ourselves into thinking that pride, anger, and even obsessive sadness can lead us to that, but those things are only ever masking a sense of self-loathing, shame. How can I know what I want? How can I know if I want to improve on something if that's how I feel all the time? So whether or not we choose to use the word shame, pride, or humility, what we are aiming for is the truth of having non-clinginess to these labels. That is synonymous with humility, and that to me is the only way you could achieve a sense of liberation. So I hope the video at least inspires you to look at things in a little bit different way, even if you don't agree with me. Thank you.